And welcome to a special presentation here. I'm Hawkeye. I'm going to talk about a few different things. I was Something happened last night. I'm going to get to that about this as well, but I'm generally going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs hiring Matt Sundin and John Chayka as the new general manager. But first off, I'm going to go through as well the playoffs. They're happening as well. The Leafs are not involved with that, but I'm going to go through that. There's been some pretty darn good hockey going on as well, and then as well, I guess I can start with my hockey pool. I'm now out of dead last. Everybody, applause, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very little. I'm in 16th place now, but a guy I work with, Ken, he's leading the way. He's been leading for a bit, but he's only 1 point up on my cousin Brady. And another guy I work with, Zach, 1 point up on them. It's tight. And then Tunnel Nuck's just behind them. He's 5 points out of first. But anyways, it's fun. Definitely lots of fun. And to look at the NHL playoffs, so in the first round, Buffalo beat out the Boston Bruins. I was correct on that one. Woohoo! I think it was even correct on the games. Buffalo put them out in 6 games. But this did me. The Montreal Canadiens beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7 games. Boy, oh boy. Montreal's in the next round, so I wasn't right on that one. Oh well. But I was right in Carolina beating the Ottawa Senators. I did think the Ottawa Senators were going to win a game or two, and it proves this is good. I'm fine with it. Maybe I was wrong about Allmark. I said he can't do it in the playoffs. He turned out to be the best Ottawa Senator in the series. So even when I was, giving him the gears for letting in bad goals, his team in return scored 0 goals. What's he supposed to do? But Carolina did put out Ottawa, and I was right as well as the Philadelphia Flyers eliminated the Pittsburgh Penguins. A lot of people, I think, in my neck of the woods anyways, were thinking, okay, this is Pittsburgh's series. I wasn't so sure. So there you go. So in that round, we got Buffalo and Montreal. And you know what? I'm going to turn it around here, and I think Montreal is going to beat Buffalo in that series. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be a heck of a series, I hope. Should be. And then Carolina, Philly. That one's already underway, and Carolina's up 2-0, but as the time of this video anyways. But I do think right from the get-go, Carolina's going to bounce out the Flyers. I think the Flyers are going to win one at home or something. But so far, the Carolina's 6-0 in the playoffs. Looking real good. But I think Carolina's going to eliminate the Flyers. And then on the other side, we have the Colorado Avalanche. They eliminated the LA Kings, swept them out in 4. I was right on that the Colorado Avalanche would win. As well, I hope I've got the right divisions. The Minnesota Wild eliminated the Dallas Stars, and I was wrong on that. I thought the Stars were going to take them, and I think just like here, around here, I think a lot of people thought Dallas was going to take it. Or in my pool somewhere, like, I ain't touching that series. Good plan, because I did, and I was wrong. But Minnesota, yeah, they eliminated Dallas in 6 games. So there you go. And then on the other side, the Las Vegas, or the Vegas Golden Knights, eliminated the Utah Mammoth. I was right on that regard. And then the Edmonton Oilers were bounced out by the Anaheim Ducks. And I was wrong on that one. So there you go. So I was right in a lot of them. What was I? 6-2 in the first round? Not bad. Let's see. Yeah, Buffalo, Carolina, the Flyers, Colorado, Vegas, and 5-3. Sorry, don't want to steal a point on you. 5-3, not quite as good, but we'll see there. So Colorado, they're up in the series against Minnesota, but I think they're going to win that. I think Minnesota's going to come back at home, look even better, but I think Colorado's going to knock them out. And then the other series is Vegas and Anaheim. I think Vegas is going to eliminate Anaheim, but that could be a long series, that one. Anaheim bounced out Edmonton, who had been in the finals 2 years in a row. So, and they still got McDavid. They still got Draisaitl in Edmonton. So, we'll see how that series goes. But now, over to the Toronto Maple Leafs now. And what happened last night, I was watching it with a buddy at work live, and it was like, is this real? Is this AI? As the Leafs grabbed the number 1 pick for the upcoming draft. Kind of unbelievable. I think they had an 8.5% chance of getting it. They did. And their answering the questions was the new hire. They said this is your first day. No, it's not. He'd been there a day before, so it was his second day. Sorry to get technical. Was Matt Sundin. Now this draft pick changes a lot, but it's a guarantee of nothing. But I'm gonna get into the new hires of the Leafs. Was on Monday. If you want to know my opinion, I think they were a little late on that. Maybe they were waiting for some answers from these guys. Maybe Sundin, but with this number 1 pick overall, maybe not now, because now you have that number 1 pick, and it gives you breathing room, space, and I think time as well by getting that pick. So anyways, Matt Sundin is the new Senior Executive Advisor of Hockey Operations. And I'm all for this move. I've got some respect for Sundin, as I personally think he was one of the greatest Leafs of all time. Certainly one of the most consistent Leafs of all time. And he could change a game. He was a great player and a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. And he still holds points with the records. With the Leafs, such as points. He had 987 as a Leaf. So there you go. And Mats is also on a very short list. This is the greatness of the Leafs since 1967, I guess. Along with just Darryl Sittler and Wendell Clark as the captains of teams for the Leafs that made the semifinals. I think there's just those 3 guys have done that for the Leafs. And for Mats, it was tough because there were series that I thought the Leafs were going to win. They lost to Buffalo 4-1, and I swear Dominic Hasek was hurt for part of that series. And they lost to the Carolina Hurricane 4-2, and that was a playoff as well that Sundin was hurt. I remember that, and they've actually played really well without him in the lineup. But he went on and only played 8 of the 20 games they played in the playoffs that year. But so, anyways, Matt is running the hockey operations. So then a question is, why is he not your president? Is it likely because he has no experience on the business side of things? I'm going to say perhaps that's right. And I'm fine with that, I guess. I'm not the one running the show. We should know that Sundin knows a thing or two about hockey. What he's done since he played or retired out of Vancouver, I'm not sure. I didn't sit down and investigate it or look around. I have no idea. But he knows hockey. The hockey he played in and knew is Very different than today's hockey, just saying as well. But um, you could absolutely put Matt Sundin in today's hockey. He would succeed. So, okay. Um, he's got that going for him, so I like it. So, in the end, Keith Pelly is still the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do I like that? Not at all. I don't like that. Um, Personally, I do not think Pelly knows enough about hockey to be the head of things. I've been here. I've done this before. Um, Richard Pelly, no, not Richard Pelly, Richard Petty, very close last names. I remember him as the president, and those were some of the toughest years in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs to watch them. I know they were pretty bad in the early 80s, but that didn't last long. They were bad, drafted Wendell Clark, and they were in the playoffs that year. They also weren't that amazing, but they were in the playoffs. It was much easier to be in the playoffs back then, no doubt about it. But the lean years weren't very long back there, if you just consider playoff hockey, right? Um, so, anyways, Pelly is the president. I know Sundin is in hockey ops. Excuse me, but his boss is Keith Pelly. I'm still not sure, like, who Sundin answers to. I've never heard of a hire that answers to no one. How are you part of the organization when you don't answer to someone or have a boss? I have no idea. Maybe that's the case here. I'm not sure. Um, so I'm not sure with Sundin and Chayka, like, are they equal? Personally, I don't care. But is Chayka Sundin's boss, or do they both answer to Pelly? Whatever. I'm not sure of that. If anyone knows out there, just fire it in the comments for me, and then let me in on that. I'm not 100% sure how that's going. Um, um, and I'm fine. Like, just saying, I'm fine with Sundin having Pelly as his boss, right? But does Pelly need to okay everything Sundin does, or Sundin works towards? I certainly hope not. Um, I hope you can give Sundin some leeway here, and allowing him to breathe in this job and do what he thinks needs to be done in Toronto, because he's been through some good times in Toronto and some very lean times in Toronto. So he knows not the full circumference of it. He never won a Stanley Cup in Toronto. He was never in the finals, but he was in some good times in Toronto since 1967. So he knows a variety of times in Toronto through his playing days. But for Sundin, there is no guarantee this is going to work at all. I don't know with the Leafs right now. Is there a country club atmosphere that I remember back in the day Brian Burke was looking to get rid of, which once he left, I don't know, like, there was a new mindset, new ideas are in place. Um, but is there a country club atmosphere there? Or I certainly hope it doesn't, but by bringing him in, does it create more so of a country club atmosphere? I certainly hope not. Excuse me. Picking something up. So, yeah, hope you don't catch it here. Whew. But I don't know how long, if there is a country club atmosphere there, how long it's been there for. And I don't know. I don't think you're going anywhere with that kind of attitude, or not having the mindset of winning is what this is all about, and teamwork is what it's all about, and being a part of a winning environment. Um, Without that in the mindset, I don't know how successful you could really be in playing this game. Now I know, yeah. So with this could crash and burn, is what I'm saying. Just with Sundin being a part of this still could crash and burn. And what will this do to tarnish his legacy? Now, his legacy, when I think back to Sundin, he was part of the Muskoka Five, the guys that wouldn't leave Toronto. In the end, they all didn't stay. But in the end, Sundin did. He didn't want to leave. He was committed to the Toronto Maple Leafs. He wanted to win in Toronto. He wanted to stay. And I look at that and say, well, that's great. That's awesome. You are part of this team. You do not want to leave. And he had every right to do that because we signed him to with a no trade clause. So he could say, nope, or I'm only going to Colorado if you trade me. Stuff like that. But he didn't want to go anywhere. I will always remember that about Sundin, and really I do think it would have been better for the Leafs if he left and we got something back in return to try and create a rebuild, a new voice, new look team in Toronto, but it never happened, unfortunately. But I think Sundin's got a pretty good reputation, legacy in Toronto. If it is a crash and burn, this is really taking it 100 steps forward. What will that do to his legacy? I have no idea. This might be a bad example, but Punch Imlach came back. He won 4 Stanley Cups in Toronto. He came back in 1979-80, that season, somewhere around there, to be the GM, brought in by Harold Ballard, and that was an awful decision. He traded Lanny McDonald. He got into fights with Darryl Sittler, and I'm sure he got into fights with Harold Ballard as well, the owner of the team. So there was a lot of turmoil going on around the team. This is all before my time, before I was alive or watching the Leafs, but I'm going to remember that about Punch Imlach, was his return to Toronto and how that really didn't work well for Toronto. Although he did bring in Rick Vibe and Bill Derlago. Great trade there, but he was just looking to trade the whole team, and it's like, no, there's some excellent players on this team here, Punch. But anyways, but yeah, this is not a new idea, going out and grabbing a face of the past or someone that's got a good legacy, put him in a position of power or management position with the team. I came up with a list just like off the top of my head. There's a lot of them, and I just went through like the old teams. So like, for example, in Boston, Milt Schmidt, Cam Neely brought in, Sid Abel, Alex Delvecchio, even now Steve Yzerman in Detroit, Denny Savard in Chicago. He coached there, not very successfully, but he came back. Bob Gainey, Guy Carbonneau in Montreal, Wayne Gretzky, Paul Coffey in Edmonton, and even Phil Esposito with the New York Rangers. That's actually a long list of guys right there. And some of those guys we're talking back into, like Milt Schmidt was like the 50s or 60s. He came in. He was like always did something with the Bruins. He was even scouting, even with the Leafs, like Johnny Bower and George Armstrong. They were involved with the scouting through the years as well. But it's a long list of guys played in new roles, and sadly, a lot of them, it didn't equate or come out to a Stanley Cup while they were there. Unfortunately, Yeah, so what I would love with the Toronto Maple Leafs is a new attitude, a new direction, which we may not get, and a new way in Toronto. By gaining this number one draft pick, I don't think you're getting much of that until you make that draft pick, and then maybe that player is so good they're able to bring some of that to the table for the team. But I don't see that, unfortunately for me, happening because this is a broken record in Toronto, and it doesn't look like anything's going to change. As in, everybody's staying. That you could get assets for it. And I'm sorry, I'm not talking about trading Matthew Nyes or Easton Cowan. Those guys are the guys you are putting on this team for the future. Anyways, now a word I've heard, I have no idea, of course I don't, is that Ty Domi, ex-Leaf, teammate for many years with Matt Sundin, may have had a bug in the ear of Keith Pelly. I don't know. Like, we're talking about his son is on the team. He's, I'm sure, excellent buddies with Matt Sundin. He knows this new GM, who knows Max Domi dating back to when he played with the London Knights in the OHL. So, I don't know. It's been written about, so I look at that and say, well, maybe there's some validity in this statement or thought. But I don't like that, if that's the case. Don't like that at all. But speaking of the London Knights, did they ever call the Hunter brothers in London? See if they wanted this job? Did they ever do that? I don't know. To me, that's me though. That's a call you need to make. But anyways, there you have it. So, now the new GM is John Chayka. He had been the GM of the Arizona Coyotes in the past. I think he's been out of the league 6 years now. Now, I've been on YouTube. I've seen some videos. I've seen some writers talk about this guy. I've seen guys on panels talk about this. A lot of guys are scratching their heads on this hire. And I even heard an interview or two with Steve Simmons, who does not speak glowingly of John Chayka just because of, or due to, people he's talked to in hockey, and not, I think as he said in the press conference, talked to 20 guys and only one guy had anything nice to say about this guy. And then Keith Pelly's like, well, it sounds like we talked to different guys. Obviously you did. Did you talk to the right guys? I hate to ask that question, and that's a terrible question to ask, but did you? But I'm certainly going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Come on in here, come into Toronto, see what you can do to be the GM of this team. But Steve Simmons had a story I remember where he was essentially calling him a fraud or a con artist or not somebody to be trusted, and now he's coming in here a day after he was hired and knows he has the number one pick overall. I don't know how many times that's happened in the NHL. That's got to be a very short list of guys. But that's what is happening here. And as I said, he was a former GM of the Arizona Coyotes, whose long, illustrious history could be written on just one side of a napkin. They haven't done much. If you include the Winnipeg Jets, which maybe some people are, yes, there's much more lush history as they go back to the WHA, won some titles over there. But I'm not. I'm looking at Arizona. They were there from 1996 through 2024. In those 28 years, this is worse than the Leafs, believe it or not. In those 28 years, it was during the 2011-2012 season, number one, they led the Pacific Division with 97 points, and they went on to the semifinals that year and lost to the LA Kings, who I think won the Cup that year. But that's it. Those are the good old days in Arizona right there, that 1 year. Even with John Chayka on Wikipedia, they don't even have a photo of the guy. That doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm not putting that really in anything, but I'm kind of surprised they don't have a picture of this guy. It doesn't matter at all. It's your job, what you're going to do in your position that matters. Now, as well, he was the youngest GM in NHL history. He was only 26 years old at the time, beating out some old young Leafs at the time, like fairly recently, Kyle Dubas. And one I remember as a kid, he was only there 1 year, was Gord Stellick. And to let you know, Stellick is on a list of GMs. Sorry, Gord. There's only 2 of them that have 0 playoff appearances while they were a GM, full-time GM, not an interim, and were in that position when the playoffs started to have 0 playoffs. It was him. He was only there 1 year, so okay. But the other one was Brian Burke. Was the other one. Now, if he was so young and getting a position like that in the NHL, he must have been amazing, right? Well, not necessarily. He was a GM of the Coyotes, for 4 seasons. He did make the playoffs. That's great. But I'm reading, from what I'm reading, he resigned from the job, but then I heard he got fired, so I don't know which one it was, but it was 1 day before the playoffs start. That should be a red flag, I'd say. Wow, the job was that horrible. You could not just sit back and literally you have nothing to do. Just watch this team you put together in the playoffs. You couldn't maybe talk to your bosses while doing that, or like get any input or like conversation or anything with them. It was that horrible of a job. I don't think so. On January 25 the next year, 2021, he was suspended from working in the NHL due to him pursuing opportunities for another job while he was still under contract with the Coyotes, as well as he hosted a private scouting combine for prospects for the Arizona Coyotes, not the NHL, but for his very own team, which is forbidden by the NHL. And then the Coyotes had to give up their first rounder in 2021 and the second rounder in 2020 for that. Woo! It's good. I hope he doesn't do anything before the draft, because we need this first round draft pick, guys. We do. And we were sort of already light on draft picks already, so we don't need his help with that right now. And one question I have to ask is, how long until John is in trouble with the NHL again? I hope he never is. But I don't know how well that flew down in Arizona, but I'm going to tell you that is not going to fly in Toronto. Doing that stuff, costing your team like that, they're going to be looking for a public hanging if you're doing that in Toronto, I think. Now, him and his wife Catherine, this is incredible. They own 34 Wendy's and Tim Hortons locations. That's a lot, man. So I guess he's mega rich as well. And we also figure he must know some business. or he's got lots of money to buy this stuff, but I'm figuring he knows quite a bit about business. But for me, an old school guy, where when I watch the game, I'm not looking at dollar signs or like wondering how much is this team making. It's all about the product on the ice. That means absolutely zippo to me how much you know about business. Really, it really doesn't mean a thing. So how do I think this is going to go down with these new hires? As I said, this number one pick changes a lot of things. You're not going to need to go out there and maybe if they draft Gavin McKenna, you might not need to go out and get a number one left winger. I think you should still get the best, another tremendous left winger. But he checks one of those boxes for you. You hope. He should. But I think certainly for the next couple of seasons, this is totally going to be a retool, not a rebuild, because the next 2 first-round draft picks are gone no matter what. They could get that number one pick, and nope, sorry, that's going to Boston next year. And the year after, sorry, that's going to Philadelphia. So you have to try and get to the playoffs. You have to try it with this team, with this core. Do I like that? We're going to see what happens, but no, I don't. But that's where we are, due to really deals that were done by Brad Treliving in trading those picks for guys that were either not used properly in your lineup or were nowhere near as good as you thought they were in bringing a Stanley Cup to Toronto. So I'm going to say, for a team without Mitch Marner, he's gone, without strong, consistent goaltending, remember there's going to be a 3-headed monster coming into next year you're going to have to deal with right away here, guys. A hurt former 60 goal scoring, his knee, terrible knee injury. I'm even going to say a questionable captain. I haven't seen things where I'm like, wow, there's a captain of a great team or a captain of a team that looks like they're on their way to going somewhere. A 35-year-old who led the team in scoring last season. A cool, extremely fashionable goal-scoring threat who may listen to his own drummer and has, in my opinion, very little leadership I would want to listen to, but they have an A on his chest, and a defenseman who's no longer being pegged as the number one guy back there, who may need a ticket out of town. He ain't the only one, just saying. And a coach who we thought was going to be bringing a tougher, hard-edged hockey into town. Clearly, he does not have the right players on this team to bring that, to play his style. And when their captain was I'm going to say it, showed to me some of the most disgusting hockey I've seen in Toronto. Talking of pride, talking of playing for what's on the top or on the front of your chest. Some of the most disgusting hockey I've seen in my lifetime there, in not doing anything at all. And then when they came back and played them again, that fight that Domi had with him was so staged, so pre-set up. I'm going to say it maybe equal to what was going on through the 70s, through the 90s, like some of that fighting, which I'm glad is mostly gone out of hockey. But that, I don't know, he didn't answer anything for that, in my opinion. The time to act is when it happened. Now, I'm not saying go over there and spear the guy in the throat, but you go over there and you might have to clean his clock. You can't do what he did. It was so extremely dirty. And two, your captain, a guy you should be building your team around, and you did nothing about it. I didn't like that for a fraction of a second. Didn't like it. And Austin Matthews is that guy that you stand up for on your team. And if they're trying to, get a pound of flesh out of him, you go over to that guy and remind them you're not going to be taking anything out of our captain. Just saying. It seems like Keith Pelly at the same time now has had a preset idea on how this hockey team should be set and run before he made these hires. We are clearly running back to Brendan Shanahan, who was unable to trade away any of his core. And I'm not making fun of him. If Jesus Christ came in an interview with Keith Pelly, with the halo, the bright lights, everything like that, and he had the answers on what should be done, needed to run this team. But if he suggested selling off your strongest assets was the right thing to do, would the meeting end right there with Keith Pelly? I think so. Because Keith Pelly has a preset idea on how to run this team. And I don't think he knows enough about hockey. This isn't a problem that's been going on for 18 months, Keith. I don't think that's going to work. Now, even with this first overall draft pick, this hiring, unfortunately, due to the look of the team right now, this may, and I hope it doesn't, I hope it's the reverse. I hope this is one of the greatest hires they've ever done in Maple Leafs history. But I still do feel this may go down as one of the worst hires in Maple Leafs history, along with, for Pelly, like the likes of Harold Ballard, Richard Petty, meaning Keith Pelly is not going to be fondly remembered here in Toronto. And he's going to be there at every press conference. I don't want to see this guy because he doesn't know enough about time I'm investing in the very least, for this team to aim it in the right direction. Yeah, so that's just it. The last question I have is, Keith Pelly going to keep talking to the media every time the president needs to speak? He should. That's his job. If so, you are the face of the franchise, dude. I know you're trying to bring Sundin out and, okay, we're going to look at him now. That's not his job. If he's coming out and talking like he did, I guess, at the draft, getting the number 1 pick, I don't know. Is that the president's job? Or is that now Sundin's job to talk to the media all the time? I would rather have that. I would rather talk to Sundin about all this stuff. I hope that is what happens. And maybe that's a job description for whatever Sundin's doing there, the Senior Executive Advisor of Hockey Operations. That's what you do. I do think that is the job of your president. I'm just saying. But anyways, that's it. That's a longer video we had today, but that's it. So I'm going to do another video closer to the draft when I talk about the number 1 pick that the Leafs are going to get, and maybe ask, who are they going to go after? Are they going to go after Gavin McKenna or someone else? But until next time, keep enjoying that playoff hockey, guys, and go Leafs go!